And Donald Trump has signed executive orders imposing aggressive new tariffs of up to 25% on Canada, Mexico and China. Now there are fears it could be the opening shot in a global trade war. So is this just a negotiation tactic?
President Trump announced sweeping tariffs.
25% tariffs.
Expected to be unleashed in just hours.
After weeks of will he, won't he, he's finally made it official. Starting Tuesday, the US will impose 25% tariffs on all goods from Mexico and Canada, as well as a 10% tariff on items from China.
And the reason for that is because both Canada and Mexico have allowed an unprecedented invasion of illegal fentanyl and also illegal immigrants into our country.
Now, those countries and the world are anxious about the flow-on effects.
I wish to discuss the tariff. Sit down, that's no business.
Canada, China and Mexico are America's three largest trading partners. About 80% of exports from Canada and Mexico go into the United States. As Americans sit down for a bit of guacamole to go with the upcoming Super Bowl, it's going to be more expensive.
The move is expected to have wide-reaching repercussions, particularly on American companies which rely on overseas factories, now facing a steep increase in the cost of doing business.
And I think people are going to be truly shocked at the pricing they're going to see on the cars, on the lumber, on the clothes, on the food. This is going to be a mess.
Canada and Mexico both swiftly retaliated.
Canada will be responding with 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods.
Experts say both America's neighbours could face recession as a result, and Australia would not be immune from the fallout.
The problem for us is the tariffs on China. China is our biggest trading partner, and if you slow down China, then you slow down the Australian economy. But for the Reserve Bank, if inflation starts to get up again in the United States, then it makes it more difficult to cut interest rates here.
So, with no clear off-ramp for this escalating economic war, can anything be done to avoid a global crisis?
Now about that tariff. Too late, that's all business already.
Well, coming to us tariff-free from Washington, D.C. is Steve Clemons. Good to see you, Steve. We saw last week the threat of tariffs was enough to get Colombia to back down on that plane of immigrants being returned. So is this all just a negotiating tactic?
You know, it is a negotiating tactic in Donald Trump's mind, but in the side that's being tariffed, it's what the heck is going on? And it means that in the future, yeah, they're going to buckle for Donald Trump right now, but maybe they're going to be friendlier to China or they're going to be friendlier to somebody else. So it may be from a narcissistic perspective, really good for America. They're going to do this, but other countries who are good friends of America are going to hedge their bets in the future.
Do you think this means that this is just a poor tactic long term? Like, this is not what diplomacy should be. It feels like a very bullying way to behave to other countries.
Look, bullying is okay if you've got all the cards stacked in your favor. But the fact is that I think from a geostrategic and geoeconomic perspective, China is a big deal to the future of America, maybe to Australia. And when you're kind of looking at this world, you want to make a place where your friends in Colombia is a great friend. Canada and Mexico are in your continent, and you want them to be friends. If you're going to humiliate them and alienate them, it makes it harder to do friend shoring. It makes it harder to say, hey, we're going to be allied against China's competition in the world. So in the long run, in my view, it's a terrible way to act because it humiliates the people who are closest to the United States.
So Trump's first presidency, though, showed us that actually it's quite difficult to build a wall and stop the flow of migrants. It's quite difficult to stop the flow of drugs and particularly fentanyl. What does Trump think that Mexico and Canada can do that America couldn't?
Well, I think that he is actually thinking that he can actually be the guy who stops drugs coming into the country, and he can use the one lever he's got, which is trade sanctions to do this, or trade tariffs to do this. And we're going to see if that works. In my view, we need a different lever in that space. And the bottom line is the economics don't work out. So I think Donald Trump has a lot of his base that thinks their jobs are tied to having a trade surplus, knocking these countries out. I don't even know if they're thinking about fentanyl. But the bottom line is Donald Trump is trying to show his muscularity right now, and he's doing that, and he's succeeding at that. So we should give him credit. But when it comes to like solving these problems, I think at the end of the day, when we look at it, I'm not sure they'll be solved.
I mean, it'd be fine when Canada just becomes a state.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
right.
There's no tariffs, it'll be fine.
Steve Clemons, always a pleasure.
Great to be with you.
It's great to think that it's very far away, doesn't affect us, but if inflation goes up there, these are inflationary policies. That means inflation here too, probably, which means if you're looking forward to interest rate cuts on your mortgage.
Hamish.
Got to think positive, Hamish.